And if you've ever felt invisible sitting across from someone you love, keep listening. You're not really wearing that, right? She said, eyes wide, biting her lip to keep from laughing. The others at the table turned. She didn't whisper. She didn't even pretend to soften the blow. I looked down at my gray button-up. Wrinkled, maybe. Safe? Definitely. But apparently hilarious. The room fell into that weird silence where everyone's waiting to see if it's okay to laugh. Then Marty giggled. Celine followed. I laughed too, quietly, like I was part of the joke. My stomach tightened under the weight of it. The tablecloth had more dignity than I did. She poured wine like nothing happened. By the time the appetizers arrived, Lyndon was in full swing. Dorian once installed a ceiling fan upside down, she said mid-sip, and blamed the instructions. It spun like a blender having a seizure. Roars of laughter. Celine choked on her Prosecco. Marty slapped the table. I tried to smile, but my palms were sweating and my jaw ached from clenching. I wasn't angry, not exactly, just dissolving. Slowly, publicly. The only person who didn't laugh was Harper. She hadn't said a word since we arrived. She just watched, like she saw something none of them did. Something I'd stopped seeing in myself a long time ago. When Lyndon excused herself to powder her nose, Harper leaned across the table, not smiling, not blinking. "Come outside," she whispered. My throat tightened. "Why?" She stared at me, her voice lower this time. "Because if we don't walk out of here now, you're going to pretend this is fine. Again." And I did something I hadn't done in years. I stood up before my wife came back. I didn't look back when I followed Harper outside. The cold air hit me harder than expected, like my body had been on fire from the inside and didn't know it until that moment. My fingers trembled as I shoved them into my coat pockets, hoping she wouldn't notice. But she did. Harper noticed everything. That was the thing about her. Quiet, observant, never part of the noise. And now she was standing beside me under a flickering street lamp, arms crossed, eyes narrowed at nothing in particular. "She does that a lot?" she asked softly, not accusing, not even curious, just gently pulling the thread. I didn't respond right away. I stared out at the traffic, cars gliding past like they had somewhere better to be. My throat was tight. "It's just jokes," I muttered, trying to laugh it off. "She's always been the funny one." "She's not funny," Harper said. "She's cruel." That word, cruel. I flinched at how cleanly it cut. Not because it wasn't true, but because I'd never let myself say it aloud. I opened my mouth, ready to defend Lyndon, to downplay the last hour like I always did. But nothing came out. Just silence. It was the kind of silence you don't realize you've been craving until it wraps around you and says, "You're allowed to feel this." "You looked like you were drowning in there," she added, her voice gentler now. "And no one noticed but me." I turned toward her, finally meeting her eyes. There was something alarming in them, warmth. Scared me more than all the laughter had. "She wasn't always like that," I said. Came out smaller than I intended. "But she is now." We stood there for another minute in the kind of quiet that makes you wonder how much of your life you've been sleeping through. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. "I saw your old posts, online, about feeling invisible in your marriage." My heart dropped. "I didn't mean for you to, wait, you read those?" "I recognized your writing style, the way you use commas, the way you write about silence." She turned toward me then, serious. "You wrote about suffocating, but you never wrote about leaving." I froze. She took a step closer. "Maybe it's time you do." I didn't sleep that night. Lyndon came home late, reeking of gin and perfume, and barely acknowledged me as she kicked off her heels, dropped her coat onto the floor, and collapsed into bed like nothing happened. She didn't ask where I'd gone. Didn't wonder why I left in the middle of dinner. No text, no call. Just a shoulder turned toward the wall, a slow breath, and silence. I sat in the hallway for a long time with the lights off, staring at our closed bedroom door. I don't know what I expected to feel. Anger? Shame? Relief? Maybe all of it. But mostly I just felt small, like a guest in my own life. My phone buzzed around 1:30 a.m. It was a message from Harper. Just one sentence. Did you get home safe? I stared at it. Then I typed and deleted a reply at least 10 times before I finally wrote back. Yeah, thanks for noticing. No reply. Not right away. But it was enough. Someone noticed. The next morning, Lyndon was already up, dressed, and in full performance mode. She wore that fake happy face she saves for her weekend brunch crowd. I watched her pour orange juice into a glass like she hadn't just dismantled my self-worth 12 hours ago. Big day today, she said cheerfully. We've got Marty's engagement thing this afternoon. You're still coming, right? I hesitated. Do I need to? She blinked. Of course you do. We're a team. Remember? That word team hit me like a joke I wasn't in on. I didn't argue. I've learned not to. It's easier. Safer. I nodded, grabbed my keys, and drove to the park to kill time before the event. I sat in my car, engine off, listening to the wind rustle through the trees. For a second, I wondered what it would feel like if I just drove somewhere else. No plan. No goodbye. Just forward. At exactly 11:47, I got another message. From Harper. You don't have to keep playing this role, Dorian. You're allowed to change the script. I stared at her words like they were a door I didn't know I had the key to. That was the moment I started thinking about leaving for Real. Not in some hypothetical way. Not just in a Reddit post no one reads. But actually walking away. Before I disappeared completely. Marty's engagement party was everything I expected it to be. Expensive, crowded, and loud enough to keep anyone from hearing their own thoughts. Lyndon floated through it like a born performer, clinking glasses and tossing her hair at every punchline. Everyone loved her. Everyone always did. She could insult a person to their face and they'd still thank her for the attention. I stood by the wall, holding a sweating glass of tonic water, nodding at people I'd never seen before and would never see again. No one asked me who I was. They assumed I was part of the furniture that came with Lyndon's life. When Harper arrived, I felt her presence before I saw her. She wasn't dressed for attention, but she drew it anyway. Her gaze found me through the crowd, and she gave me the smallest nod. No smile, just recognition, like we shared a secret now. Later, as the speeches dragged on and Lyndon laughed too hard at Marty's fiancé's bad jokes, Harper found me again. This time outside, near the fire pit, away from the cameras and curated conversations. You look like someone who's about to ask permission to breathe, she said quietly. I didn't know what to say to that. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Maybe I am. She leaned against the brick edge of the pit, watching the flames dance. You ever wonder what would happen if you just didn't go back inside? You mean tonight? No, she said, turning to face me fully. I mean at all. I looked down at my shoes. They were scuffed and dull, like I hadn't bothered to polish them in months, maybe years. I don't think I'd know how to explain it. Then don't explain it. Just do it. We stood in silence as voices and music filtered through the glass behind us. I could see Lyndon in there, surrounded by people, glowing under the string lights like nothing had ever gone wrong in her life. I wondered if she even remembered what she'd said to me the night before. Probably not. For her, it was just another joke that landed. She's never going to see you, Dorian, Harper said, voice lower now. Not the real you. I looked at her then, and something in me shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. For the first time in years, I just let myself listen and feel the weight of what it meant to be forgotten by the person who claimed to love me. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed, and Lyndon didn't ask why. 2 days passed and Lyndon didn't mention the party, or the fact I slept on the couch again, or that I hadn't spoken more than a sentence to her since. We lived in the same space, but she floated above it like a ghost who'd forgotten it used to be human. I went through the motions, made the coffee, fed the dog, nodded at her outfits when she twirled in front of the mirror for no one but herself. That morning, something changed. I was plugging in my phone when I saw hers buzzing across the counter. She always left it face down, but this time it was angled just enough for the screen to flash. A name I didn't recognize popped up. Gavin. I don't know why I looked. I wish I hadn't, but I did. Last night was perfect. Your laugh is still in my head. Time slowed. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed again, and all I could hear was the soft hum of the refrigerator. I didn't move, didn't breathe. For a second, I thought it might be an old message or a friend or some stupid misunderstanding. But Lyndon walked into the room just then and saw me holding her phone. Her eyes went sharp. "Don't snoop," she said flatly, yanking it from my hands. "That's not snooping," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "It was right there." She didn't answer, just walked into the other room and shut the door behind her. I didn't follow. Instead, I texted Harper, "Can I ask you something and not be judged?" Her reply was instant. "Always. If you found out something that changed everything you thought you were holding together, would you stay anyway?" "No," she replied, "because then I'd just be pretending. And pretending too long makes you disappear from your own life." That broke something in me. I left the apartment that afternoon without telling Lyndon. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove until the buildings thinned out and the sky didn't feel like it was pressing down on me. At some point, I pulled over into a quiet parking lot and sat there, staring at the cracked leather on my steering wheel. And then I made a decision. I messaged Harper again. "I need to see you." Harper lived in a quiet part of town. The kind of neighborhood where every front porch has wind chimes and you can hear your own heartbeat when you step out of the car. I sat outside her place for a full 5 minutes before I knocked, staring at her front door like it might swallow me whole. I don't know what I thought would happen. Maybe that she'd tell me to leave, or worse, look at me with pity. But when she opened the door, she didn't say anything. She just stepped aside, like she'd been expecting me. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and something soft, like lavender. There was music playing quietly, an old piano instrumental I couldn't name. Everything felt warm, safe, slow. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for a punchline. She made tea. We didn't talk right away. She sat across from me on the floor while I slouched on the couch, hands shaking slightly as I held the mug she gave me. I told her about the message, about the name, about the way Lyndon looked at me like I was the one invading her privacy. Harper didn't react the way I thought she would. No gasps, no anger on my behalf, just quiet listening. When I finished, she reached across and touched my wrist, gently. "Do you believe it now?" she asked. "Believe what?" "That you're not imagining it. That the way she treats you, it's not love. It's possession." That word hit hard. Possession. Like I was an object she refused to part with but hadn't truly cared for in years. I wanted to cry but didn't. I wanted to scream but couldn't. All I did was nod. Then Harper did something I didn't expect. She stood up, walked into the hallway, and returned with a small notebook. She handed it to me, open to a page near the middle. Her handwriting was neat, careful. It was a letter to herself, about staying in a relationship too long, about watching her identity erode, about the night she finally chose to leave. I read it twice. Then she said, "You don't owe anyone your silence anymore." That night I didn't go home, and for once, I didn't feel guilty about it. I came back the next morning just after sunrise. The apartment was still. Lyndon hadn't texted, hadn't called. I half expected the locks to be changed, or some dramatic performance waiting behind the door. But no, everything was exactly where I left it. My keys on the counter, my coat on the chair, and her, curled up on the edge of the bed like she hadn't moved all night. She opened one eye when she heard me step inside and stared for a moment. Silent. "Where were you?" she asked eventually. No warmth, no concern, just cold curiosity. "I stayed with someone," I said, voice quiet but deliberate. "Someone who doesn't make me feel invisible." The pause that followed was long enough to feel like a threat. Lyndon sat up slowly, brushing her hair back from her face. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Her jaw clenched. "So you're cheating now? Is that what this is?" I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "Cheating? You've been emotionally gone for months. Lyndon. You flirt openly, lie about your schedule, hide messages from guys named Gavin. Don't pretend this is sudden." She stood, crossing her arms. "I never touched anyone. That doesn't mean you didn't leave me. The words hung between us like fog. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry or yell or even try to twist it around like she usually did. Instead, she stared at me with something bordering on disgust. "You're pathetic," she finally muttered. "You've always been too sensitive, too soft. That's why I started pulling away. You let people walk all over you, including me. That admission, it should have broken me. Maybe even 2 days ago it would have. But something in me had already shifted." She wasn't saying anything I hadn't already screamed in my own head 100 times. The only difference now was, I believed I deserved better. "I'm not staying," I told her. She laughed, short and sharp. "You don't have anywhere to go." "I do now." I walked to the bedroom, grabbed my duffel from the closet, and filled it with the bare minimum. She stood there watching me like she couldn't believe I was really doing it. That I, the weak one, the quiet one, the man she forgot how to love, was actually walking out. But I did, and I didn't look back. The first few nights were the hardest. I stayed in a small Airbnb outside the city, the kind of place with mismatched towels and a broken porch light. But it was quiet, and it was mine. No one rolled their eyes when I spoke. No one weaponized silence like a dagger to the chest. I had space, and for the first time in years I had peace. Harper checked in every day. Not because she had to, but because she genuinely cared. She didn't ask what my plan was. She didn't push. She just showed up with warmth, music, and once, a small basket of groceries with a sticky note that said, "You matter." It was stupid how much that made me cry. Over the following weeks, I started piecing myself back together. I began journaling again. Walks turned into runs. I deleted old texts, unsubscribed from the lies I'd fed myself for so long. I called my brother, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, and told him the truth, about everything. He didn't say much, just said, "About damn time," and invited me over for dinner. The divorce wasn't messy. Surprisingly, Lyndon didn't fight it. Maybe because she knew she'd already let me go long before I ever packed a bag. Or maybe because she never thought I had it in me to leave. But I did. One afternoon, I sat on a bench by the lake and watched the sun flicker off the water like it was winking at me. Harper sat beside me, sipping coffee, legs pulled up underneath her like she belonged there. She looked over and said, "You know, you're not the same guy I met at that dinner table." "I hope not," I said, and I meant it. Not every story ends in fireworks or revenge. Some just end with the quiet realization that you're worth more than the version of yourself someone else reduced you to. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't scream. I just walked away, and that was enough.